Welcome to the Packers versus Broncos game recap and overreaction Monday. A lot of you are probably as hot as what Matt LaFleur looked like on the sideline after our second drive and the referees calling a false start when it should have been a neutral zone infraction and how much frustration he had on his face. We all completely understand how you guys are feeling, maybe not as hot as LaFleur. And day before we dive into this thing and open up the tab of the episode, I feel like I need to have a bit of a PSA for myself and other Packer fans out there. You saw it coming this week with this game and the more self-inflicted wounds and shooting ourselves in the foot. I at least finally have to face the music myself, also as a Packers fan, and come to the realization that this is a bad football team. That our identity so far and our brand of football is on offense. We like to play for 30 minutes out of the 60, so we play for half of a game. On defense, we bend but don't break, and we get gashed in the run. And just overall, we may have to sort of readjust what our expectations were when it comes to the win-loss record. But I at least had to get that out there. I've been holding off on going through my sort of 7 stages of acceptance, or whatever you would call that. It's not grievance, but yeah, Dave, I'm finally going to put it out there that we're a bad football team. I know it could potentially be put back on track, but I'm right there with you. And that said, hey, let's go ahead and kick off this Packers versus Broncos deflating loss.
Yeah. Man, I think it gets worse before it gets better in Green Bay now. I kind of saw the writing on the wall in Vegas, and I'm just like, you and Hein both kind of put me in my place a little bit, but I was kind of sticking my guns of, I'm not seeing what you guys are seeing in terms of the tide turning here. And then losing to Denver, which is even a worse football team, this was the easy part of the Packers' schedule. So they're in for a rude awakening of they need to change things fast. Whether that's putting a different lineup together, a different game plan together, guys being accountable. It's not looking right. It takes the offense till the first drive of the third quarter to get going most of the time. I knew they would start out slow most games. I didn't realize how slow they would actually start out. And the defense, for the most part, is holding up pretty well. It's just they're on the field so much, and the bend and don't break style, eventually they're just worn out. And then when the time comes for the game where you need that must stop, they're just worn down and they can't come up with it.
And something to give the Packer fans reason for hope as the season goes on, and we got to get to our predictions of 7, 8 wins or even 6. Like, where are we going to find these W's at? Hey, it's a week-by-week league. The Patriots beat the potentially Super Bowl contenders in the Buffalo Bills, and the Patriots are 1-4. People are coming after arguably the greatest coach of all time and Bill Belichick's neck. The Lions didn't show up yesterday, so as we move throughout the rest of this 23 season, this really young team, maybe we just hope the other team doesn't show up as much as we do, and we get it corrected. Like, one thing that was really startling to myself, starting off on the offense, really where the frustrations continued, and maybe there was no corrections after the bye week. Both LaFleur and Love said in their post-game pressers that we need to continue to push the ball down the field. We need to take more shots. We need to get more chunk plays. And it appeared to me when I went back and watched the game tape that we were either taking shots down the field to wide receivers or we were throwing them wide receiver screens.
Yeah.
So was our corrections throughout the bye week to water it down to this simplistic point of screens or deep shots, and that's all this young team could be able to do? I mean, there's other plays out there that show creativity, but that whole first half, that's what it appeared to me.
When they first brought in the packages last year with the end arounds and then the wide receiver screens, they would mix it in on occasion, and it worked out great because it was just like, okay, you got young, fast receivers, just get the balls in their hands, let them work. This can't be the staple of your offense. Like, it has become to the point where I don't know the percentages, but it seems like the percentages are way up where it's like the entire stadium knows that play is coming.
It's pretty bad. And you said staple of an offense. We were texting about this back and forth. Can we finally scorch and just kibosh that end around play? It's like we get a nice drive going, and I get it. You want to add some trickery in there, like that Wicks left-handed completion to Aaron Jones, which worked to perfection. These end arounds either need to stop, or we need to stop doing them at ill-advised times, or to players that only run a 4.6 in the 40. Like we were texting back and forth about it. What happened to doing an end around with Christian Watson? Is it he just not back up to 100% yet and full speed? Like, what's going on there?
I still think that you would know it's coming, and I don't think you really block it up all that well either. To your point on the quick screens and stuff like that, it boils down to the offensive line. I don't think Love has enough time to really get anything out there besides like a quick screen or a quick slant right now. Everyone's in his face. There's guys that are just missing assignments, whether it's a slide to the left protection or slide to the right protection. There's just a guy screaming it through one of the holes. That was the big change that I wanted to see during the bye week, was if they would reshuffle the offensive line. That never came to fruition. They basically had 2 byes, right? They get blown out by the Lions. You get that mini bye. You get a loss to the Raiders, and then you get another actual bye. And it's looked very much the same.
I don't know how you can explain the false starts either. Rasheed Walker, I think it's time to replace him with Yosh Nijman. You had DeGuara do a false start, and there was like the play before that Tucker Kraft also had a false start. Like, do you have too much time off where you're out of sync and you don't know what the snap count is anymore? And then on like the opposite side of the ball, you saw that like the Broncos knew going into it, they're like, we think we can get after Jordan Love with this offensive line. They were teeing off on us. They were trying to time it up. I know there was a couple times, including that was brought up at the beginning of the show, LaFleur extremely hot on the sideline. But yeah, Larry McCarron up there in the booth, internally speaking, like you brought up before the show, he has to be pretty uncomfortable with what he's been witnessing for this upfront performance.
Yeah, you mix in bad discipline, the youth, and then just the injuries. It's a perfect storm for a bad football team, right? Like, Jair's missing, then you lose Savage, you lose Wyatt. It's just, yeah, we're kind of gonna go through some turmoil here in Green Bay. I'm not saying that it's Matt's job on the line. I don't think it's Love's job on the line. I think both those guys are going to be at their position that they are currently going into next year. They gave Love that extension. I think they're probably not going to extend him at this point. They're probably going to have next year be his kind of contract year, because I know there's possible talk if he was lighting it up, like, do you extend him in November or December? I think you just kind of let the contract ride out. And I think Matt gets one more year under the belt of, man, this team was super young. There's a lot of holes. We were in cap hell. It's first year after Rodgers. So I think LaFleur gets another ride next year too, but I'm not really – there's no excitement, right, with the game. There's hardly any wild plays that get you on your feet saying, okay, this is it, let's go. Like, on either side of the ball. Like, there's no turnover plays and sack plays that we thought our defensive line and outside edge rushers were going to light up the entire league going into the season. But it just turns out our offensive line is just terrible.
And we're not even in Denver, Colorado. You can just feel out of sync and just disjointed the offenses. Here's the Mr. Brightside part of it all, okay, Dave. And I know as we move forward throughout this season, we got to find the bright spots. Even if there's only 2 plays of them, at least need to give these Packer fans something to feel good about, so they don't acquire, a drinking habit like the 2 of us. So there's 4 plays in this game that I was in love with, that maybe doesn't get you out of your seat, makes you say, wow, but 4 plays that all have something that are in common, a common denominator. And I asked for it in the bye too, which was get Love under center, play action fakes, either get him moving out, rolling left or rolling right. The rolling left or the rolling right didn't happen, but these 4 plays that Love was under center, that good came from it, was that Christian Watson, he was lined up in the backfield, did like a deep crossing route or deep rub route, whatever you want to call it, drag route So Christian Watson did that deep drag route. That was a completion that got our offense going. In the second half, Love was under center. I'm like, where's that been at? I'm like, he did that against the Eagles and getting him into space and one-on-one coverage, getting the ball in his hands. There's also a Luke Musgrave corner route that Love hit him on, and he got completely smoked by that safety and was taken out of the game. That play was under center. The Dobbs touchdown, that contested catch that looked like the Hail Mary from 2012, that was an under center play by Love. And then last but not least, that fourth down conversion on 4th and 1 to Luke Musgrave in the flat, that was also under center. You asked for reshuffling of the offensive line. I'm asking for more under center. We got neither of them, and the offense just boiled down to about as simplistic as you can get, but with a lot of good running plays mixed in.
There's going to be a point in this season where there's going to be more games like that Lions game that we went to, where it's going to be the offense isn't going to be able to get anything going like they did in this until the second half, and by that point it's going to be, 23-3 or something like that.
Yeah, we're fortunate that the Broncos didn't pile it on, that they're just a bad offense and they settled for 4 field goals. Have to at least give a bit of a shout out to A.J. Dillon. I know a lot of people are ready to write him off. This is his second straight game with carrying some momentum. This is an offense that has had a tough time gaining its footing. A.J. Dillon seems to be getting his footing these last 2 games, and what you're noticing is he gets the ball and he's heading straight downhill.
Yes.
There is no reading blocks. There was actually 2 of our best run plays of the season with Aaron Jones that had a nice cutback run, and then A.J. Dillon, he got it out of shotgun, and there was a big hole between the guard and the tackle that he ran through. So A.J. Dillon clearly made some changes over the bye week or right before that Raiders
game. He had a really
game.
nice catch out of the backfield, too. It was kind of like one of those do a 3-yard button hook right in front of Love, and he took it up for like 20-something yards.
On that potential game-winning drive that we decided to take a deep shot into Samori Toure and double coverage with the safety floating over. But yeah, at least had the cheers part of it is that I thought our offensive line in the second half did a great job of blocking up some good run plays for Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, who could be turning it around at a great time of the season with November here, and it's like barely 50 degrees and rainy in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So cold weather is a brewing, and in good time with the cold weather back and A.J. Dillon.
Yeah. Man, it's tough, man. I mean, there was a lot of people that I think felt like it could go this way, but I think they thought it was going to be mainly due to Love, where Love would have 2-3 interceptions per game, and you can just kind of rag on the guy. But dude doesn't have any time to throw. LaFleur's getting hot on the sideline for guys running wrong routes. I mean, how many times have we seen over the past 3 weeks where you have 3 wide receivers in the same area?
I haven't even written down on my notes over here. It was the 3rd possession on offense. It was a 3rd and 4, and you have Christian Watson and Jaden Reed basically hugging, both doing 5-yard out routes in the same exact spot as Love throwing it out of bounds. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, I like these out routes, but not when both wide receivers are carrying 3 DBs over there with them.
It's hard. It's hard to talent eval. I mean, I'm trying to think of how to put this. It's not, I guess, tough to evaluate if the talent's good or bad when it's clearly showing that it's bad right now. But it's tough to evaluate talent when the mental mistakes are so much in the forefront, where you can't even get a good look on a play of did the guy beat the wide receiver or the cornerback or not? Is Love making a good read when you just don't have A, time, and 2, there's 2 guys right in the same spot or whatever you have it's just, you get a good drive at 2nd and 2 and you false start someone and it's like, okay, great, we're in the same spot. And then you have you had Rasheed Walker grabbing the opening of someone's face mask. Like, I get it, it's 4th down anyway, but there's just so much stuff. I mean, Walker looked like he was on ice skates all night. The only time the line looked halfway decent was when Myers went out and they put Tom at center, but that was only for 3 snaps.
That was when Aaron Jones had that cutback run for 11 yards, too. That was right when that took place. Look at the push up front that this offensive line is getting. And it's like in the third quarter, Love has nothing else that I don't know if they were like designed quarterback keepers, but he picked up like 2 first downs with his legs because it's like, hey, I'm going to go through my first read. Maybe they're in the wrong spot. Offensive line isn't blocking it up well enough. And he had a couple of nice first downs with his legs. So we'll say that for some kudos to Jay Love.
I would love to see something where they put Tom at left tackle and they put Nyman at like right tackle or something like that, or even put Tom or Jenkins at center and just completely reshuffle it, because whatever they're doing is not working.
Yeah, I just don't know where the hell these drag routes are, or why you can't get Christian Watson, running a crosser and throw him the football.
I think the defense is just muddling the short routes and the run game and stuff. Like, okay, we know Love doesn't have the accuracy to hit on the deep balls. Like, we're just going to crowd the entire line. Like, okay, try to run on us, try to run some 3-4 yard route. Like, it's just not there.
They're sitting on those routes, and then LaFleur's response. That's just the one that I heard in the press. And like, yes, he needs to look back at the tape, but sorry, Dave, I don't think the answer is more chunk plays and more shots downfield. I don't think that is going to be the end all be all to have a coherent first half on offense. What about the defensive side of the ball? Talent evaluation, like the first place that I look at is, and we thought just like the pass rush was going to get home after watching training camp and preseason, and we thought Carrington Valentine is going to be the next man up, next sort of Sam Shields, and the way that he appeared. He had his first true test, and they were seeking him out early and often with Cortland Sutton, who I'm a big fan of. I think Cortland Sutton's a dog and is a true number one wide receiver in the NFL. But yeah, this is one that Carrington Valentine, this is maybe like his welcome to the NFL moment, not in the best way.
Sutton's a true number one. So I'm kind of reserving on the Valentine assessment. Oh, yeah, he got eaten up that day. But I think could very well be how they utilized him and how that matchup went. I mean, I'm pretty certain that they could have at one point just been like, Douglas, you take him, but that's not the Packer way. Hopefully he has a bounce back next week, but next week's a tough task too with the Vikings coming in town. We're going to the Vikings. So if Stokes is out, because Stokes pulled a hamstring after being on one snap in punt coverage from his return from IR. So
you said Stokes got hurt?
Yeah, Stokes was out after the first play of the game.
Whew.
That's where he went missing.
That's a long list. I thought they were just giving him the one snap, and he's like, all right, well, this is our slow rollout, i.e. the Packers way.
Nope, pulled a hamstring on punt coverage.
Oh, that's like, 8+ players that went out with an injury or got banged up throughout, dropping like flies. Yeah. This is the injury plague season for it. And yeah, would have been nice. Would have been nice if Rasul could have helped out with Valentine, or you float a safety over there to him a little more. I don't think they did him a ton of help as a guy out in the island facing a guy who's a player that's 6'5" and 220 pounds.
The crazy thing is, every team in the NFL on defense has like those 2 to 3 guys that you look at and say, okay, the defense is built around these guys, and like the team feeds off that energy and they do all that stuff. And it's just like the Packers have the guys, but the other guys just don't feed off it, right? Like, I know you're a huge Jair Alexander fan. I love him to death. I like what he brings to the table. I like how he's shut down, his swagger of the gritty and the seatbelt and all that stuff where players can kind of feed off it. I like Douglas's game, and I've been harping on this for a while, way better, because he seems like he just brings the juice. There's an end around, or there's a short pass, and he just blows it up right away. He's a willing tackler. Jair has not been a willing tackler this year.
No, and his back injury is still flaring up. They're like, depending on how the flight goes, and I watch the Eagles game, and I see Jalen Waddle like putting heating packs on his back, doing whatever he can to get in the game. I don't want to question injuries. My dad's like,
No, I'm not going that
he's
way.
got his guaranteed contract, his guaranteed money. Like he's gonna, take it as extremely careful as he possibly can. But it's like I see Jalen Waddle trying to get in the game, and now it's 2 weeks off with a bye. There must something really be going on with his back that
I'm sure.
he's playing like one game in the last like 4.
The three guys that this team should feed off of in terms of energy right now are Kenny Clark, Rasul Douglas, and Quay Walker.
Yeah, like Rashawn was not existing. He did have a nice third down stop, but like outside of him, I don't know if we've had any sort of pass rush. You brought up during the preview that you want Russell Wilson to look like how he was in 2016 when saw him throw 5 interceptions. He looked like Russell Wilson of old, except for he wasn't making bad decisions and he was moving around really well in the pocket. We didn't do a good job of collapsing in the middle, and he was able to eke out of there, pick up first downs with his legs, buy some more time. I don't think we did a good job of like keeping him in check. And he's been sacked the third most times in the NFL, and yet we couldn't get a pass rush on him all day long.
Yeah. I know we're talking Broncos, but it's kind of an overall theme, right? Where we pictured in our minds that this defensive front was going to really get after the quarterback, put pressure on it, and then the cornerbacks could just sit on the routes, and it would be easy pickings, whether it's interceptions, pass breakups, what have you. And we've been pretty bottled up, haven't been making too much pressure. And then when we actually collapse the pocket, we're getting some of these mobile quarterbacks that are chunking us for 12 yards or just moving around inside the pocket and finding a guy wide open that they could hit for 18 yards.
Yeah, I thought for sure, like, this was a Rashawn Gary 2-sack performance. JJ Ningbari, who was flashing left and right in the preseason, he's been nowhere to be found. Preston Smith, I'm thinking, is kind of a little bit over the hill at this point. I don't know how much more he has left in his tank. And I don't know why it is. Rasul seems to get up for every game, and then Quay Walker is like the one other player that I just see flying around in the football. He's got a ton of passion. He's bringing the energy with him. He had 2 tackles for a loss yesterday. And everybody else just kind of seems like meandering their way around on the football field.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm certain guys need to pick it up, or we're going to get to a point later in the season where we're going to be thinking about a lot of holes that need to be filled in. It's going to get to a point where it's like you can't fill all these holes in one offseason type thing. So there's guys that are definitely having down years. There's guys that might have been in a contract year that way outperformed that 1 year, and then they've kind of been in a landslide since. And then there's just guys who are notoriously have slow starts for us that it's like, okay, when are you going to get going? Like, Preston's been on a slide for a little bit now, right?
Yeah. And it's like we have a tough time attacking either offenses or defenses' weakness. If you notice, though, the Broncos ran it straight towards Isaiah McStuffy, as Devin Hine calls him. And he's like a poor man's Blake Martinez, always tackling 5 yards down the field. It's like the Broncos went after him, and they went after Carrington Valentine. Like, they're smart enough to do that, but it seems on like our side, we can't. Yeah, like to your point, get our 3 best defensive players on that side of the ball, get them in the action much more, and ways for them to make an impact on the game.
Before we kind of wrap it up, I have one last point to you. There was a interesting take on the broadcast. They mentioned that the Packers have the most rushing attempts against them. So clearly teams are seeing it and be like, okay, this is the way to attack Green Bay. This is the way everyone's always attacked Green Bay. You run it 30 times to either keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands or also because the run defense is weak. Is this now a coaching scheme thing, or is this you need to get some like 300 plus dudes in there that just like, who cares about the pass rush? Just fill up the gap and like let the running back run into you and take them to the ground. Like, I don't know if it's like you need a Johnny Jolly, BJ Raji type guy, like a Howard Green, where it's just a massive human being where it's like, okay, like I'm not going to penetrate the quarterback, but here I am, all 340 of me, like no one's getting through me.
Yeah, I think I'm on the side of that, knowing that the NFL is a copycat league, and I watch other teams do certain things. Like I've called out the 49ers and try to replicate their offense. It's also like last night and watching that Eagles defense and their front seven that just completely ruins your game plan. Look at those dogs they have up front, and Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox, who still is a formidable defensive lineman. I think it's more about getting some big boys up front. Yeah, like a Johnny Jolly or Gilbert Brown. Like they've spent a lot of draft capital on interior defensive linemen these past 3 drafts. And like I watched them straight bully not only the Miami Dolphins last night, but other offensive lines where, can you remember the last time our defensive lineman took an offensive lineman and like pancaked him and pushed him to the ground and was all up in the quarterback's face? Outside of Kenny, I can't remember the last time a defensive lineman's done that.
I used to really like the Packers' approach of getting talent based on like this guy's a freak athlete, we're gonna like make him into a football player type mentality. But I'm starting to think that they need to start just getting football players. And I think everyone in the audience knows like what we're talking about. Like a guy that just puts up stats in college who you can just see is like, okay, maybe his measurables aren't there, but like the dude is always around the ball. He's always making plays. I don't care if it's offense or defense. Like it seems like we've kind of gotten away from that. And it's like, oh yeah, this dude can run as fast as anyone. Like he's a all-time basketball star that we're going to make into a football player type stuff. It's like, it's kind of gotten away from it. Now we have a lot of track stars that don't know how to run a route or catch a ball or defend a pass or have proper lane integrity. Like all that stuff is out the window. It's just pure athletes, which I think you're going to have certain players of that are role players or that you might get a spark in a bottle and he becomes a superstar, but we're not really drafting football players anymore. We're drafting athletes.
They love that RAS score. And it doesn't help that like these like developmental athlete projects take 2 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And most of our squads in either their first or second year. So that sort of warm-up season for next year, the building blocks for that 24 campaign or the 25, they could pan out. But right now, yeah, it's like where's the brute force of like a physical football team, and knowing that Lucas Finesse is going to take some time to develop, and Devontae Wyatt as well, and some others out there. Yeah, I see your point. I think of Iowa football players like a Micah Hyde or a Mike Daniels that just turn on the tape. Who cares about what their height and weight and speed is? Like, what are they actually doing when you cut on the film?
Yeah. All right, Jordan. Not the outcome we wanted. It's still a fun season. We're still having a good time watching the games and talking Packers here. These are a ride or die team. We're not jumping ship ever. I mean, they could go 0-17 for all we care. Hopefully they give us a little bit more excitement this upcoming week.
Yeah, anybody can be first in line when things are going good, but when there's the test and things are going south, there's a true battle on your hands. That's where you see, where people truly stand. And if they're going to continue to support this team, I like it looking at the glass half full that these tickets are going to be pretty cheap coming up here at Lambeau Field for myself in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And it just helps that these are stress-free games. Like both of us are probably kicked back on the couch and being like, now it's, hey, give me 3 or 4 good plays throughout this game, something for me to look back on and talk about on the show.
All right, buddy. We doing a preview for the Vikings later in the week then?
I would think so, yeah. Justin Jefferson's out. Good. Patriots knocked off the Bills. This could be our get back on track game. We're only six games in. We're 2 games out of the wild card spot, so there's a lot of ball left to be played. Talking about the playoff picture, you never know.
Perfect. All right, Jordan, you take it easy, man.
Cheers, all.